We're going to talk about introduction to Java. And we can see that programming languages enable humans to write instructions that computer can perform. With precise instructions, computer coordinate applications and systems that run the modern world. Sun Microsystems released the Java programming languages in 1995. Java is known for being simple, portable, secure, and robust. Though it was released over 20 years ago, Java remains one of the most popular programming languages today. One reason people love Java is the virtual machine, which ensures the same Java code can be run on different operating systems and platforms. Sun Microsystems' slogan for Java was "Write once, run everywhere." And then we have a little diagram here showing us some Java code and that it gets run through the compiler, and then it goes into the Java virtual machine and it can be run on every platform or every operating system. Java programming languages are composed of syntax, the specific instructions which Java understands. We write syntax in files to create programs which are executed by the computer to perform the desired task. Let's start with the universal greeting for a programming language. We'll explore the syntax in the next exercise. If we have a look now at the instructions, it tells us that we are looking at a computer program written in Java. And this is the code that they are referring here in the instruction number 1. It says run the code in the text editor to see what is printed to the screen. So if I'm going to click run, we get the output hello world. So this is the result of this code. So this code produced this result. Alright, we are going to move on to the next one. Okay, in the next lesson we are going to look at the hello Java file. So Java runs on different platforms, but programmers write it the same way. Let's explore some rules for writing Java. In the last exercise we saw the file hello world.java. So this one here. Java files have an extension of .java, so the way we see here, hello you.java, that is a Java file. Some programs are one file, others are hundreds of files. Now inside the hello world.java we had a class. So we had public class hello world, and then we have these curly brackets. We'll talk about classes more in the future, but for now think of them as a single concept. The hello world concept is hello world printer. Other class concepts could be bicycle or savings account. We marked the domain of this concept using curly braces, so like so, yeah? Syntax inside the curly braces is part of the class. Each file has one primary class named after the file. Our class name hello world and our file name hello world. So this one, yeah. It's essentially talking about this one, hello you, this is the name of the class, and hello you.java is the name of the file. The name of the class is given after the name of the file itself. Inside the class we had a main method which lists our program tasks. So public static void main string args, and then we have the curly braces. Like classes, we use curly braces to make the beginning and the end of a method. Public static and void are syntax we'll learn about in the future lessons. String args is a placeholder for information that we want to pass into our program. This syntax is necessary for the program to run but more advanced than we need to explore at the moment. So we'll have a look at this a bit later on in the course. Our program printed hello world with the line system.out.println, and we have the parentheses, we have then the double quotes, and inside those double quotes we have the actual text that the text we want to display on the screen. Now println, so this one, is short for print line. We'll use system.out.println followed by parentheses whenever we want a program to write a message on the screen. So this is the command we have to use whenever we want our program to write a message on the screen. Now if we have a look at the instructions, the text editor has a file hello-u.java, which is this one here. This Java file contains a hello-u class. So this is the class hello-u class, and we know this class starts here and it ends here. Actually, these are also highlighted now with a main method. So this is a main method here. Inside main, add a statement which prints hello some name, with your name replacing some name. So instead of here of some name, we have to put our own name. In my case, I'm gonna put my own name, which is Alexandra, or Alex in short. Make sure to end the statement with a semicolon. For example, if your name were Maria, the program would print hello Maria. Okay. Well, at this point we know that if we want to print something on the screen, we have to use this statement, okay? So system.out.println. We're gonna end it with a semicolon, and inside we said we have to print in double quotes. We have to print hello followed by our name. Okay, like so. We're gonna run this, and this is the output we get on the screen. We're gonna go on to the next lesson now. We are gonna talk about commenting the code. So writing code is an exciting process of instructing the computer to complete fantastic tasks. Code is also read by people, and we want our intentions to be clear to humans, just like we want our instructions to be clear to the computer. Fortunately, we're not limited to writing syntax that performs a task. We can also write comments or notes to human readers of our code. These comments are not executed, so there's no need for a valid syntax within a comment. When comments are short, we use the single line syntax. So these are 2 forward slashes. And this is an example. Calculate customer satisfaction rating. And obviously this is preceded by 2 forward slashes. When comments are long, we use the multi-line syntax, which is a forward slash followed by an asterisk, and then we write whatever we need to write, and we end that with an asterisk and a forward slash. And this is an example here. So exactly what I said to you before. We use this notation, we put our comments on a multi-line, and then we end it with this one. Here's how a comment would look in a complete program. So public class comment example, so this is a class which starts here and ends here. We get the comment, I'm a comment inside a class, fine. We have the main method, so public static void main. And here we have, I'm a comment inside a method. And then we have some code that this main method contains and will run once the run button would be pressed. Comments are very different from printing. No, comments are different from printing to the screen when we use system.out.println. These comments won't show up in our terminal. They're only for people who read our code in the text editor. Now, if we have a look at the instructions, it says the file timeline.java has plain text information about Java. Plain text facts aren't valid syntax. We'll use comments to avoid breaking the program. Use single line comment syntax for the first fact. Change this line into a comment. This one, yeah? So for this one, we need to put a single line. So it says use single line. That single line, okay? Okay. And then we have to change this line into a comment. We've changed it by adding the 2 forward slashes. Okay, and of course we're gonna get some sort of an error, because as you can see we still have a comment here, which if we have a look at the second instruction, it says our program is still broken. Use the multi-line syntax to make these lines into a single comment. So we're going to use the multi-line syntax, which, if you remember, it was a forward slash followed by an asterisk, and then at the end of it we add the asterisk and a forward slash. So once we've done this, we should still see "You are a fun language" printed on the screen. There you go. So we're seeing this, okay? Of course, alongside with all the other statements, valid statements that are written in here on line 5, on line 9, and of course on line 15. Okay, so we've run this, we've completed them, and we're gonna move on to the next lesson. And this one talks about semicolons and whitespace. So as we saw with comments, reading code is just as important as writing code. We should write code that is easy for other people to read. Those people can be co-workers, friend, or even yourself. Java does not interpret whitespace, the areas of the code without syntax, but humans use whitespace to read code without difficulty. Functionally, these two code samples are identical. So if we have a look at this one, and if we have a look at this one. But of course you can see that the second one is much more legible, much more, it's easier to read. And you can understand a bit quicker what is going on in this code as opposed to what's going on in the top code here. So these two will print the same text on the screen, but which would you prefer to read? Imagine it was hundreds of instructions. Whitespace would be essential. Java does interpret semicolons. Semicolons are used to mark the end of a statement. One line of code that performs a single task. The only statement we've seen so far is this one. So system.out.println and whatever message we want to print on the screen, and then followed by a semicolon. Let's contrast statements with the curly brace. So this one, curly braces mark the scope of our classes and methods. There are no semicolons at the end of a curly brace. Now, if we have a look at the instructions, it tells us like so. The languagefacts.java, so this file, prints information about Java to the screen. Unfortunately, the writer of the file has avoided using Whitespace. Make the file easier to read by adding a new line after each statement. So in this case, we simply have to just add a new line after each statement, okay? So like so. This is like this because I have increased a little bit the font in order for you guys to see a bit better what's going on the screen. But if I do this, there you go, it has changed it completely without me having to change the distance between these two windows here. So if I'm gonna run this now, it's gonna work. Of course, it would have worked before as well, but it's much easier to understand this than it was before. Okay. So now if we have a look at the second instruction, it says inside the main, add a new statement printing how you feel about coding. Start the message with programming is something, okay? So inside the main, add a new statement. So where would we do this? Well, here. So we do system.out.println. We end it with a semicolon. We add the double quotes, and it says we have to start the message with programming is what is it? Programming is interesting. Okay, if I'm gonna run this now, there you go, our message is showing on the screen. So programming is interesting. Remember to place a semicolon at the end of the statement, which we just did here. Okay, fine, let's move on to the next lesson. In this lesson, we're going to talk about compilation or catching errors. Java is a compiled programming language, meaning the code we write in a .java file is transformed into bytecode by a compiler before it's executed by the Java virtual machine on your computer. A compiler is a program that translates human-friendly programming languages into other programming languages that computer can execute. So we have our file, it goes through the compiler, then the compiler turns our file into a program or into a file that has the .class extension. That file with a .class extension is run by the Java virtual machine, and Java virtual machine feeds to our computer machine code. Okay. Previous exercises have automatically compiled and run the files for you. Off-platform development environments can also compile and run files for you, but it's important to understand this aspect of Java development, so we will do it ourselves. The compiling process catches mistakes before the computer runs our code. So what it means is that if we have some sort of an error or errors in our program, in our file here, when the compiler tries to compile this, it's gonna tell us, I can't compile this because it has errors, or it's gonna compile it successfully if the code is absolutely fine. Yeah. So the Java compiler runs a series of checks while it transforms the code. The code that does not pass these checks will not be compiled. This exercise will use an interactive terminal, which is this one here. Codecademy has a lesson on the command line if you'd like to learn more. We're not going to look into this right now. We're going to try and do it ourselves here. Okay. For example, with a file called plankton.java, we could compile it with a terminal command, javac, and then the name of the file followed by the .java extension. So javac plankton.java. A successful compilation produces a .class file, plankton.class, that we execute with the terminal command java plankton. An unsuccessful compilation produces a list of errors. No class file is made until the errors are corrected and the compile command is run again. Now, if we have a look at the instructions, they tell us to practice compiling and executing a file by entering commands in the terminal. Our text editor contains a broken program, so we need to see how compilers help us catch these mistakes. Don't make any corrections. So this program here contains some errors, and we're being told not to make any corrections just yet. In the terminal, type this command. So javac compiling.java. Why compiling.java? Because that is the name of our file. And javac is a command, it's a built-in command, okay? So javac compiling.java. We press enter. So it tells us there's some sort of an error and that semicolon is expected, and that is on line 6. How do I know it's on line 6? Well, because it says compiling.java and it gives us a number here. That is usually the number of the line on which the error has taken place. So it's so intuitive, it tells us exactly what the issue is. So it says on line 6, you are missing a semicolon. If we go and have a look at line 6, we see that indeed this statement has not been ended properly as it should have with a semicolon. Okay. Use the check work button to progress through the checkpoints. So if I'm gonna put a semicolon, we have to have a look also at the second instruction. Did you see the error? The compiler is telling us one of the print statements is missing a semicolon. In the terminal, type ls and press return or enter. So let's see, ls and press enter. ls is short for list, and this command lists all the available files. There is only one file, compiling.java, which is this one. We did not successfully compile the file because of the error, okay? And now number 3 says add the missing semicolon in the text editor. We just did this here. We'll compile and execute this file in the next exercise. Check now. Okay, done. We can go to the next lesson now. And it says in the instruction number 3, it says that we will compile this program again and execute it in the next lesson. Okay, so in this lesson we're going to talk about compilation, creating executables. Okay, so compilation helped us catch an error. Now that we've corrected the file, let's walk through a successful compilation. As a reminder, we can compile a .java file from the terminal with a command javac and then the name of the file, including the extension .java, yeah? If the file compiles successfully, that command is going to produce an executable class. And that class is going to have the extension .class. So it's going to have the same name, but the extension is going to be .class instead of .java. Executable means we can run this program from the terminal. We run the executable with a command java and then the name of the file, but without the extension. Okay, so without the extension .class, or what other extension have we seen? .java. Okay, but since we can only execute compiled classes, which are going to look like this, so the name of the file followed by .class, that tells us that is a class that has been successfully compiled. We can use that name, so just the name without the extension, and with the keyword java. Okay, so note that we leave off the .class part of the file name, exactly what I was telling you before. Here's a full compilation cycle as an example. So we have a file called welcome.java. We have a class called welcome. And in that class we have the main method. Inside that main method we have a statement that tells us welcome to Codecademy's Java course. We have one file, welcome.java. Yes, indeed. We compile with the command javac welcome.java because this is the name of our Java file. The terminal shows no errors, which indicate a successful compilation. We now have two files, welcome.java, our original file with the Java syntax, and welcome.class, which is our compiled file that contains Java bytecode. So that is the code that the machine is gonna interpret, that our computer can understand. Okay, and that code, that bytecode, is ready to be executed by the Java virtual machine. We can execute the compiled class with the command java.welcome. And now if we have a look at the instructions, it tells us let's compile and execute our program. Run the ls command in the terminal to see the uncompiled Java file. So first of all, in the terminal here, we press ls and then we press enter. And this tells us this is the file that you have access to, that exists right now. Okay, so we've done step one. It says let's compile and execute our program. So we've seen what the name of the file is, and we said we compile the program. So we compile this Java with this syntax, javac, yeah, and then followed by the name of our file, compiling.java. So we've done that first. It says compile the file from the terminal. So javac compiling.java. And this, if I press check work or if I press enter, it has compiled our compiling.java. Now, in theory, if I'm gonna issue this command again, ls, we should see two files instead of one. We should see the compiling.java, which is the uncompiled file, And then we should also see compiling.class, which is the result of this command here. So if I'm going to do that, exactly, we can see we have two files, compiling.class and then compiling.java. Compiling.class is the result of us compiling by issuing this command of this compiling.java file. Okay. Compile the file and compile the file from the terminal. Okay, we've done that. And then enter ls again to see the new class file. We've done it already. And then it says run the executable file from the terminal. If you remember from what we discussed previously, we have to use Java and then just the name of the file without the .class extension. So compiling. Okay. So if I'm gonna do this now, if I'm gonna press enter, it has run exactly this, but from the command line. And if I'm gonna press check work, there you go. It has ticked our box here that we completed this successfully. We're gonna move on to the next lesson. And in this lesson, we're gonna talk about putting it all together. So it's a bit of a Java review for the first section of this course. So in this lesson, we've started writing our first programs in Java. We've also learned rules and guidelines for how to write Java programs. Java programs have at least one class and one main method. Each class represents one real-world idea. The main method runs the tasks of the program. Java comments add helpful context to human readers. Java has whitespace, curly braces, and semicolons. Whitespace is for humans to read code easily. Curly braces mark the scope of a class and method. Semicolons mark the end of a statement. Java is a compiled language, and the compiling catches mistakes in our code, and compilers transform the code into an executable class. Now, if we have a look at the instructions, it says like this: the text editor holds an empty file named review.java. Fill it in. So, what do we need to do? So we need to create a class, because first of all, we know that each Java program needs to have a class, yeah? In our case, the name of the class is gonna be review, because the name of the class needs to be exactly the same as the name of the file, yeah? So we're gonna start public class, so we're gonna use the keyword class that tells us, hey, this is a class. Review. Why review? Because it has to have the same name as our file. And then we're gonna add the curly braces. It tells us here, use opening and closing curly braces for the scope of the class. Remember, no semicolons for classes or methods. Okay, so that's all for now. If I'm gonna run this, well, of course, it tells us main method not found in class review. Please define the main method as. So we have to also define the main method. Public static void main. We're gonna add also the curly brackets. And inside here, we gotta add string args. If I'm gonna run it. Okay, so it ticked this box, and this code produces an error because Java program needs a main method. So that was exactly our code without the main method, yeah? Then we added the main method. We added it to the class. And now if we have a look at the instruction number 3, it says inside the curly braces for the main method, write the main method executes the tasks of the class as a single line method, okay, as a single line comment. So we have to add, if we remember from the previous lesson, we have to add for a single line comment, we have to add a double forward slash, and I'm gonna copy this and we add this as a comment. I'm gonna run it, and we completed the instruction number 3. In instruction number 4, it says below the comment, write a statement that prints the following text. Okay, so this one. I'm gonna copy it. And we remember again from the previous lessons that in order to print something on the screen, we have to use the statement system.out.println. So system.out.println. We end it with a semicolon, and inside we have to put semicolons, we have to put double quotes, and inside those double quotes we have to add the text that we want to display on the screen. If I'm gonna press run, we get this output on the screen, and there you go, we also achieved a badge. You earned an achievement, lesson completed. So we've completed this chapter called Hello World. Okay. Thank you so much for watching, and let's go to the next lesson, next chapter, which is gonna cover the natural progression from this lesson.